All right, this video is going to, show you the design of the co-op database. And normally this would take some time, some weeks, and much discussion, but I'm going to go through it as if all of that has already occurred. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to lucidcharts, and I'm going to make a new lucidchart. I'm going to do a blank document, and one of the shapes, we have all these different shapes, but I'm going to add some shapes. So where it has plus shapes, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to get entity relationships. Okay, this is one way you can get there. And these are the entity relationships. Okay, so let's go look at the data. So I'm going to go back to Canvas, and I'm going to look at data samples for co-op. And one of the things that I want to do is we'll go through and we'll just look at the main things there. We've got members, right? So that's one of the things that we'll probably need. We have suppliers. We have employees. We have purchases, the store purchases. We have suppliers, we've got store purchases, we've got sales to members, let's call it sales. It says store purchase by members, but we'll call it sales. And we've got inventory, so that's a good starting place. So on the diagram, I'm going to just add those. So we'll take in an entity, and I'm going to say members. We'll take in an entity, and we will say suppliers. And then we'll take in an entity, and we'll say employees. And we'll bring one in, and we'll call it purchases. And we'll bring one in, and we will call it sales, and we'll bring one in and call it inventory. So that's where you can start, is just looking at the main categories of of the data. These are the main categories of the data. All right, so there's a couple of things. I'm going to do two of these. So let's make a PK. And I'm going to call it a member ID. Spell it right. Having trouble typing. Okay. For some reason. Okay, so member ID. And we would do things like we would have, let's say, last name, first name. I'm not going to do them all right now because I want to show you something. So let's look at employees. I'm going to do employee ID. And then I'm going to do... I'm also going to make a change here. Just for consistency, I'm going to make these all lowercase. Okay, so then we have last name, first name. So the thing I want to show you, and suppliers would have something similar, is that these have the same fields, and we'd add the email, and we'd have the address, and they'd all be the same fields. And all of the employees are also members, so there would be a duplication across these. That's not a good thing. You don't want to ever have things duplicated. You don't want to have to enter the same information in multiple places. Every piece of information should be entered in one and only one place. So I'm going to suggest a new entity called person. Again, you can name these what you want. And the person is going to have a person ID. And it will also have a, last name. Again, try to be consistent and not ever consistent. First name. And I'm going to add a email and phone. Now I'm not going to do address right now because when we look at the data we'll see there are some issues there. Alright, and this will be a primary key, right? It's something that uniquely identifies it. When we do it in the actual database we will make it be just a number. Every person will have a number. Again, I don't know why. Okay. So, person, all of the people, no matter whether they're employees or members or suppliers, will be listed in person. An employee will still have an employee ID. And it will also have, if we look at our employees, it will have the date they started and their employee type. So let's go back. So it'll have a person key, right? That is actually what will tie it to person. And they'll have a and they will also have a position. So I will just do this and then a position. We will maybe change this when I do the actual code, but right now we got employees, right? Person and employees. Members, I will have a member ID, and they'll have a date last. Let's look at our members. So they'll have a date that they were added as a member. So let's add that here too. Let's say date renewed. All right. And then I'm going to delete this one. All right. So we got our member. Suppliers will have a primary key, supplier ID, and they will have a person key as a foreign key. Oh yes, these two will have, let me add, and the person key in here would be a foreign key. I do not know why my fonts are going wonky here, but we'll not worry about it right now. So person key. And what else do we have for supplier? The date, again, another date for when they were listed as a supplier. It's a good idea to have dates for just about everything. In fact, I will probably add one here. We'll just add date added. Okay. So that gives us our suppliers, our members. Whoa. I just wanted to stretch this, and that's not what it's doing. There it is. There's the stretch. Okay. The other thing we need, if you'll notice, let's go back to the data. We'll notice that some suppliers have multiple addresses. All right. And the other thing about an address is that you have basically a block: phone, address, city, state, and postal, all of which is related to the address and not directly related to the member or the person name. So it violates the second normal form, right? So what we need to do is create another entity. So let's go back here, and I'll drag on another entity called address. And it will have an address key, our address ID. We'll make it a primary key. It'll have a person key, or a person address ID as a, let's make this an ID too, to be consistent. Same here. Did I do anywhere else? Yeah. All right, as a foreign key. And then it will have, I'm just going to call, I'm not going to make it as elaborate as it probably should be, but I'll do street, city, state, and postal code. All right, so these will not be keys. All right, so we've got our person, employees, members, suppliers, and address handled. All right, so I'm going to do one other thing with the employees, just to show you. We have their position here, but let's say they can have more than one position. So, and we want a lookup table for positions. So make another entity called job type or whatever. It could be called position, except position's a reserved word. So I'm going to do job type ID, job type name, and description. All right, and I will stretch that out a little bit. This will be a primary key, and these won't be keys. All right, so we'll get rid of position here, because we're going to say that one employee can have many positions, and each position can be assigned to multiple employees. That creates a many-to-many relationship. To resolve that, we will need a, I'm going to call it employee can't type employee job type. Okay, and it's going to have two. It's going to have an employee ID, and it's going to have a job type ID. Okay, these are going to be both primary keys and foreign keys. So there's only one primary key. This is what they call a composite key. And so it will have it's the combination of the two that needs to be unique. It'll keep, one employee can have many different jobs. One job can be assigned to multiple employees, right? It resolves that many to many into two one to many. So we're going to do the relationships here pretty soon. I'll do them all at once. All right, so we have purchases next. Let's do this. So I'm going to do so we call it purchase. I want a purchase ID. We will want the date, probably the date and time. So purchase date. And we want, let's look at our data. When we look at it, store purchases. We want which employee and which supplier, right? So we want the employee key, the employee ID. And we want the supplier ID. Now I'm not going to put the details there, and I'll show you why. So this is a PK. That's nothing. This is a foreign key, and this is a foreign key, because they refer to other tables. All right. The thing is, if you look at the data again, when there's a purchase here, there are several things for each purchase. Again, one of the things about a first normal form is that you can't have multiples. You have to break those off. So what I am going to do is I am going to create another entity, and it will be called purchase detail. And it will have a purchase detail ID. Okay. I'm just trying to do the things. I'm going to stretch that out. It will have a purchase ID to tie it to the purchase. Probably we should have done inventory first, because what we want here is, well, actually for the purchase they're not in inventory yet. So what we're going to do is we will make the purchase, we want it to have kind of the same things as the, so we want a description of what's purchased. So let's go here. So we'll do a description. And I guess we'll do a price. I'm trying to remember if this is how I really want to do it. So I want to add one below. So we will have the price paid. We might want units. I'm not sure of that, but this is a primary key, foreign key again because it refers to purchase, and then these are not keys. The units, we'll see about that. We might adjust that. All right, we want to do the same thing with sales. But before we do sales, let's do inventory. So for inventory, we'll give it an inventory ID. We will give it a Item description. Let's look at our data. So we want the supplier, we want the date, and we want the description. So let's do those. So that's a foreign key. We want the date purchased, which is not a key. We want the item description. We want, oops, I think it'll come back. I lost him. All right, so we want the date purchased, description, this is what I wanted, units. We want like a price per unit. So ignore my capitalization stuff. As I said, when we write this out, we'll try to be consistent. Price per unit. I had a thing, there was a thing for wastage too. Let's look at the data again. Quantity, pull date, and then waste. Quantity, pull date, and waste, which is how many units are wasted, how many units have to be thrown away. All of these can go away. Okay. So we've accounted for all of the data in our document examples. We've got entities, got a lot of entities basically that are describing it. So now what we want to do is join all of these, show the relationships among them. All right, so for instance, person, let's put person more in the middle here because it's got to go to a lot of different things. Oh, we haven't done sales. We need to finish sales. So I'm going to do sale ID. We want the sale date and time probably. We want the employee ID. And we want the member ID. All right. Now, just like purchase, there needs to be a details, because when people buy things, they buy more than one. So I am going to do sale detail. I'm going to give it a sale ID, sale detail ID rather. It will have a sale ID. It will also have an inventory ID. And it will also have a quantity, how many they're buying. And it will have any discount information. Now you don't have to put the price there because the price is here. You can discount from that price and you can do the calculation on the fly. So let's change these to primary key, foreign key, foreign key, and then these two can go. Okay, so now we can do the relationships. So, person ID to person ID. One person could be, technically you can make this one-to-one, but I think it works better if you do it as one-to-many, and that the employee ID is separate than just the person ID, because it helps specify their function better. Same over here, could technically be a one-to-one, but we'll do it as a one-to-many. And also suppliers. I'm moving this over here for a moment. So let's bring suppliers down here, and there we go. So there's, the person is tied to all of those. Now, with employee and job type, this is the linking table, so I'm going to move it here, and I'm going to do employee ID to employee ID and job type ID to job type ID. Okay, so those are hooked up. So an employee, this will start to get messy. I maybe want to move, let's see if this will work. If I move this down here, move this up here. I'm trying to make this clearer. But because employees are part of a purchase, so, and an employee is also a part of a sale. Okay. And a member is also a part of a sale. So I think I'm going to try to move members down here, suppliers up here. It's a real trick trying to get these two. So we'll do member ID to member ID here. Oh yeah, address needs to hook to person 2. Okay. So the relationships, I'm trying not to make them too messy, but it is a little bit messy. All right, sale detail is just hooked to sale. So I'll do sale ID. I'm going to put this like over here. Sale ID to sale ID. Whoa, I missed. And I'm going to do inventory ID to inventory ID. Okay, so that hooks up that. And purchase detail will be from purchase. Let's move it up here to purchase. And I think everything is hooked up now. So, and one employee can have many job types. One job type can be assigned to multiple employees. Okay, so this is the linking table there. One person could be many employees. Technically it's one-to-one, but it works better as a one-to-many. One person could be a supplier. One person can have many addresses. One person could be many members. Again, one-to-one probably works better for that. Okay, one member. So when you purchase, an employee is involved with the purchase, and a supplier. I didn't get the supplier in there. Woo. So this would go all the way to here, which is a real mess. I'm trying to straighten this into a way that makes it a little bit more I don't know that that's better, but all right. Each member can have many sales. Each employee can be involved with many sales. A sale can involve many inventory items, and each sale can have multiple details. Same with every purchase, it can have multiple details. All right, so I'm not sure how clear all that is. There is a script for this which might actually be clearer than what I actually did on video. But I am going to call that a video. I will post this on the with the script. I'll put it at the bottom of the script. All right. This one you don't have to do. I just wanted you to see it in the basic process. You will be doing a couple of diagrams yourself, one for the normalization and one for the group database project. All right, so I'm going to stop recording.